Welcome back to YellowCard Vanguard. I'm your host, Toku from It's Toku TV on Twitch. Throughout the week, I'm streaming Vanguard on my Twitch channel. We'll be building decks, playtesting, and just having a grand old time, so be sure to swing on by. With new clan collection reveals coming out every day, you know what that means. It's time for a new chapter of clan collection cores. I want to preface this video and the entirety of the series by saying that many of these lists are entirely conceptual and surface deep, and will need your own playtesting to fine-tune. But each of these will aim to provide a way of thinking on how to take your new support in Clan Collection 3 and 4 and put it into a working deck. They won't all be optimized, but I believe they will be a good baseline to build off of. Welcome to Clan Collection Cores. In this clan collection, reverse units were first introduced to the V Premium format, and with them, they brought mechanics such as lock into their clans. I think Refiarade misheard because it looks like she came to rock instead. Let's take a look at the new vision of Refiarade. From a quiet girl to a rock star. Detonate Singer, Refiarade Rock. In the hand, at the end of the battle that your rearguard attacked, if you have a Vanguard with Refiarade in its card name and a rearguard in rest, and all of your circles with rearguards in rest have a force marker, you can counterblast 2 to ride this card as stand, rest all of your rearguards, and move all of your force markers to Vanguard Circle. Then, at the end of your turn, remove all the force markers on Vanguard Circle and gain a force marker for every 2 removed. Very flavorful, Refiarade went from being more of a backup idol and letting her friends take the stage, but she grew up to Refiarade Rock and now wants all of the spotlight, read force markers, focused on her. I like her effects, cause honestly, quiet Refiarade immediately sets up Refiarade Rock and isn't locked to your opponent being grade 3 or greater either, so you could re-ride into Refiarade Rock at turn 3 if resources allowed for it. And that's my biggest qualm here though. Counterblast 2 is a pretty big cost. Now, Bermuda Triangle has one of the best countercharges in the game, but this is still a heavy cost nonetheless. I'm also not the hugest fan of her second skill to cut our force scaling in half. I prefer something like a flat reduction of 2 or 3 force markers, but I guess it makes sense since Refiarade turbos out force markers like damn. The new grade 2 is Courteous Beauty Seria. When placed on Vanguard Circle or Rearguard Circle, discard a card and look at the top 3 cards of our deck. Add up to 1 card to hand and put the rest onto the bottom in any order. She then gains 5k, and if our opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, gains 10k instead. Did somebody miss the memo that Bermuda has way too many good generic staples? I honestly think that Seria might be borderline broken. A walking pot of duality that swings over Vanguard power by herself gets a 10 out of 10 from me. I would compare and contrast her to Aqua, both cards that filter in some way or form, but for the same time and in context of specifically in Refiarade, Aqua might be better due to the continuous power pump. That's not to say, however, that other Bermuda Triangle decks wouldn't love to have Seria ran at max copies. Finally, the new grade 1 is Sparkling Soul Nikita. When placed on the rear circle or the Guardian Circle, we can Soul Blast 1 or more cards and she gains 5k or 5k shield until the end of turn for each soul paid for the cost. Then, if 3 or more were paid, draw a card. This is an interesting one. I think in a vacuum, it's a decent to good card. Being able to convert soul into power and guard, and also convert herself immediately to a new card in hand, is good. The biggest issue comes to then, what Bermuda Triangle deck soul charges that much? Outside of rewrites, I don't think many decks actually build soul outside of Melody, and that deck wants to keep most of their Melody cards in soul as well to get Plon to scale further. I can't really land my finger on how this one will fit into the In any case, with the new cards introduced, let's take a look at the list. This is very cookie cutter. The game plan is literally read both Refiarades and activate their effects. We look to use Quiet Refiarade skill to force marker our entire board and do 5 drive checks. Then we attack 5 times with our rearguards. After the 5th rearguard has attacked, we counterblast 2 to ride into Rock Refiarade from hand and slurp up all of the force markers onto the Vanguard Circle and swing very, very, very large. And probably get perfect guarded. The sad part of Rock Refiarade is the fact that she doesn't gain the crit or the power that Quiet Refiarade would have gotten from triggers, because to be honest, I'm not too scared of a Twin Drive 80k attack. I'll just take it on the chin. Regardless, that is our win con. Let's go into the list. So, we're going to run 4 copies of Quiet Refiarade for our Force Marker Farming and Advantage Engine, and 4 copies of Rock Refiarade for our finisher that we can get a surprise attack out of. Now, because Quiet Refiarade relies on her allies to help her out, we're looking for rearguards that either gain power or get more units to play with. What would a Bermuda Triangle deck be without Lizelot and Aqua, first of all? So we're going to instantly stuff 4 of these into our deck. The sheer advantage of calling Lizelot turn 1, then bouncing her back with Aqua to call her once more is an instant free board, and won't ever be overlooked or forgotten. This time around though, we're actually opting to not run Ellie, since Ellie is a more defensive rather than offensive kind of card, and doesn't make for a good rearguard attack except for her on-hit pressure. Instead, we've chosen to run 4 Reliable Faith Lusalos, plays a similar defensive role to Ellie, being able to guard or intercept for 15k rather than 20k, but she's also base 13k by herself, and on a force marker, she can swing for 23. Similarly, we're going to run a full set of Mermal Idol Sednas to pick up the Rock Refiarades to have it in hand as we resolve Quiet Refiarade and go through the attacks. But also because Sedna is another solo 15k body that can attack for good numbers. In our last 9 slots, we run our resource management techs. We realized that between the 2 Refiarades, 3 counterblasts will be used, so countercharge is very important to us. We're going to run 3 copies of Equable Career Spiana for her ability to countercharge. Her effect in not being a hard once per turn allows us to bounce it back with our Aqua and go again for another countercharge. This lets us resolve both Refiarades on 2 damage if we have the cards to send back to deck. We're also running 3 copies of Cuddle Connect Vanessa for her skill to recycle Heal Guardians back to our deck, and with how many drive checks we get on average in return, this can make us very tanky as we're always going to be able to heal down. Finally, as a way to draw more cards if we haven't had enough already, is 3 copies of Tide Conductor Echoes. Once per turn, when the Vanguard is placed, we can have Echoes gain 5k until the end of turn, and if the Vanguard we placed is grade 3 or greater, we can Soul Blast 3 to draw 2 cards. You're beginning to see where I'm going with this, right? We're going to forfeit Echo's 5k gain since she's already 18k on a force marker. Instead, we're going to use the ability to draw 2 more cards after rewriting into Rock Refiarade from hand. Hopefully through Quiet's drive 5, Echo's draw 2, and Rock's drive 2, we'll have a hand strong enough to stave off any. Going into our trigger lineup, we're going to be running 8 crits, 4 draw Sentinels, and 4 heal Guardians. Quiet Refiarade isn't exactly what I call a threatening Vanguard, so we gotta run crits to make the rearguards a bit more scary. The Heal Guardian is also mandatory. It being a target to get shuffled back into the deck by Spiana and Vanessa is what makes the clan really tick now. As for other cards to run, my god, there's so many. Bermuda Triangle is spoiled for choice when it comes to generic good stuffs. We can obviously look towards Ellie once again, play her as an 18k on-hit attacker. We could even go and play Seria as well. Why not throw in a pot of duality for even more consistency? There's just so much good generic cards in Bermuda Triangle that if you were to throw a rock into that pond, there are high chances of it being good for whichever deck you opt to play. With that all said and done, do I think Refiarade Rock has any business in the V Premium format? Maybe, but if it does, it would be off the laurels of Aqua and Lizelot as an engine. The sad truth about Refiarade is that all the cards that she uses well, all the other decks use well too, and better even. Unfortunately, due to the support this time around being generic as well and not specialized towards anything unique that Refiarade could do, we're always going to be overshadowed by the likes of Prism and Plum. In any case, this has been it for me from this episode of Clan Collection Course. Be sure to subscribe to the channel for more content like this, like the video as it helps motivate us to keep the gear goose going, and leave a comment down below. Every little bit helps the channel. This has been Toku from the YellowCard Vanguard channel. Toku out.